Some of the teammates and some of the high moments during your career?
Well, probably one of the highlights of my career was at my home club, Carlisle, Bill Shankly. There was a man called Ivor Broadis who was made player manager of Carlisle when he was only 23, which I think must be a bit of a record. And I actually signed when he was, as I say, player manager, even though I didn't have a lot to do with, the coaching side or that side of, he was too busy playing. And he eventually went to Sunderland, who were fighting sort of relegation, and the man who replaced him was Bill Shankly. Of Bill, was a tremendous fella, probably, I would think, regards, one of the best easily in my lifetime. And he took over, and it was great playing under him because, of his enthusiasm, etc. And unfortunately, he left Carlisle rather suddenly, just as I was sort of, I had to do national service when I was 21. And it was a matter of getting that over with. And, the talk was that I was certain to move to a bigger club. I never thought of Liverpool, even though, I always, through doing national service, I learned a lot about Liverpool people from lads who were in the forces, because I knew then they were fanatical football people, and that put me in mind of coming to a place like Liverpool, you see, and then it happened. I was at the club when Bill Shankly came, but I was more or less on my way out. Actually, what it was, I had what the doctor described as a bad groin strain, and eventually it turned out and was proven that it was the start of an arthritic hip, and my game was rather beginning to deteriorate slightly. And I went to Ballymena United as player manager, and I played more or less nearly every game I was, with Ballymena, plus roughly 11 times for the Irish League, and captained them every time, which was a good experience.
So what was the route back to Liverpool then?
The route back to Liverpool was, I came back to my old club, Carlisle United, when I was 33, and they were on the verge of going out of the 4th Division. And I played with them under Alan Ashman, and that was where I started doing a bit of... I always had, I thought, an eye for a player, but I started doing a bit of scouting as well, going... He would send me, if I wasn't playing, or, should it be convenient, mostly down into Lancashire, watching players, and they signed one or two, and Alan done very well. I didn't realise at the time that it could more or less go from the 4th Division, to, they went from the 4th more or less to the 2nd, and then eventually they went into the 1st Division, Carlisle. I came down to Liverpool, and just more or less by good fortune, there was Norman Law, who had been chief scout for I think one season or 2 seasons, had just accepted a job in America, and they offered the job to me as chief scout. That was 1967. That was under Bill Shankly, yes. That was actually that was the 3rd time under Bill, yeah.
When you're looking at a player, without obviously wanting to give away too many secrets, what do you look for basically?
Well, I always look for good basics. Like when I see a player approach the ball, and he takes the sting out of the ball, or something like that, approaching the ball, that is always a good sort of lead. And then I look for good basics. That's control of the ball, winning the ball, a bit of pace, like passing the ball. There's quite a few basics you look for. A bit of pace. If you get a player now like with 2 good feet, it's a bit of a bonus, really.
Do you keep tabs, files on players?
Oh yes, we keep files on players. Yeah, I mean we know players' ages and appearances for clubs. The previous clubs. Like you take a fellow as an example, Phil Neal. Northampton Town, 4th Division. Now I have a book with all the previous seasons he had played, and I think he'd only missed about one match in 3 seasons, something like that, which is a good... I mean, anybody can be unlucky to get an injury, but at the same time, if you can get a player who's, playing over 40 games a season, it's a good recommendation in itself. Players, as we're talking about previously, having a good track record with appearances, I think there must have been something in it with, with Bill Shankly, with his training methods and that. Definitely believe in that, without a doubt. I mean, when I played, road work and all that was a big part of the build-up of training pre-season. As a matter of fact, when Bill Shankly first came to Carlisle in 1949, he said there'll be no road work. He said everything will be done on grass. And he said once your legs are conditioned on grass, he said there'll be very little lapping done. He said Joe Davis doesn't lap around a snooker table, which put it in a nutshell.
Just putting you on the spot a little bit, really, Geoff.
Yeah.
Players that you've gone for and have been delighted with the outcome, players that you've recommended and said, well, I'm pleased I got him. He was a real good buy.
Yeah. Well, among the present day players, I mean, you have Alan Hansen, who I think is a world-class player, nearest to world-class. I watched him along with one or two other centre-backs, and we were getting into Europe regular, and I said, well, we're not looking for fellas who are going to be kicking the ball over the stand. We want fellas who can get the ball like he can get hold of it, like a continental player, and keep it and go forward and use it and play a part in the build-up. And then, of course, there's Ian Rush, of course, is turned into, I'm not really surprised. You realise it's a gamble at the time, but I'm not really surprised because as a boy of like 17, 18 playing for Chester, I could see, what he could do in the penalty box, as well as out. I mean, he wasn't a bad player outside the box either, but in a crowded area, he was always had that sneak and that, he could sniff them out and put them over the line. Some of them might look easy, but they're not easy. It's his ability to get into those positions. That's the vital thing.
And on the other side of the coin, players that perhaps you've looked at and, they've made it somewhere else and you think, should have gone for him.
Funnily enough, I was just talking when we were having a bite to eat there, and I was just talking to John Walk about what I considered sort of our biggest miss in my time. This lad, Kevin Beattie, who come from the same city as myself. And I watched him, and we had him down here, and he was a lad who was on the dole type of thing, and I fancied him very strongly, but we played him in trials and that, and then unfortunately, he didn't turn up, and the next thing he had signed for, he was switched down. I would think he was one of the biggest sort of misses in my time, the player he turned out to be.
And the future, Geoff, for you, obviously looking for some more Ian Rushes and Alan Hansens, I would think.
Well,
is it getting more difficult?
Oh, without a doubt. Oh, there's no danger about that. It's getting very, very difficult. The quality doesn't seem to be there somehow or other.